As we begin, first of all, you'll need some materials such as a canvas to paint on, paints, brushes, a palette to mix your paint on, and of course an image that we're going to paint today. All of those materials that we give more detail to in a previous video called our materials list video. You can refer to that if you want more detail. You can pause the video at any time to catch up, or you can even fast forward to see the finished product. So we invite you to do that. You'll notice that I have toned my canvas. Today I went with purple only because I wanted to. The painting that we're going to be doing though does have a lot of purple. In this particular photo that I've got here, it printed very yellow. The image that I'm going to show you in just a moment will be a little more cool than that. So as we begin our design, our composition here, we're going to be thinking about how we can lead our eye through the painting. And to do that, you'll notice that there's a bit of a shadow space right here. I don't know if you can see that very well. A bit of a shadow. So that serves the purpose to create kind of this S curve that takes your eye right back into this area of the painting. This is really our focal point. So it's going to come back, and then your eye comes back through here. This serves as a vertical to kind of stop your painting. So your eye just goes naturally right back in this area. And so that's what we're going to be doing in this painting, and we're going to keep that in mind as we paint. So at this time, I'm going to invite you to take a screenshot. We're going to arrange the elements, as I said, to keep that S-shape composition. So the first thing that we want to do is establish the horizon line of the painting. So you're going to see that right through here, this is where we have the horizon line, right back through there. And you'll notice if this is the halfway point, it's about it's about a third. So at about a third of the way back, we're just going to sketch in a horizon line. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now, we're going to start to look at shapes that we see here in our painting. The first shape that I see here on the horizon line is this little grouping of trees. And I want to keep that because this grouping of trees will serve as a stop so that your eye just doesn't go off the page, but instead will come up here and then go back into the painting. So we want to keep this block of trees. There's another little bit of very far off trees in the very, very far horizon. I'm just going to indicate those here. Take a little bit of this blue. I'm going to use some purple in this painting, so I may as well mix some up. I'm going to mix, on our color wheel, you'll notice that blue and red. Purple is located in between the primary color blue and red, and you'll notice I'm using all primary colors today. So mixing blue and red, we're going to get purple. So just going to indicate that. Blue and red is going to give us this dark purple tone. There we are. That's what I'm looking for right there. And I'm going to use that to sketch in. So again, there's that, and there's like there's a dark spot right there in the foreground. Okay. Now we're going to look at this particular tree. Holds a very important spot, and you can see it's about, let's say, if this is our halfway point, you can see it's a little bit to the left of that, so it's about a third over, and we're just going to indicate that here. It goes all the way up to the top, and we're just looking kind of at the shape. You can see that it dips down below the horizon line. This is our horizon line right here. It dips below that. And then we have another grouping of trees. Up, you can see we go up, we come down, we go up. And then we come over here, coming down. There's quite a bit of a dip here, which adds interest, okay? And then we have just that across. Just going to indicate that area across that line that's kind of there. Okay, now remember we had a grouping of this dark area right here. So we're going to indicate that. Kind of a triangle shape. Okay, indicating again just a darker shade. So with this darker color, I want to go back and I'm going to indicate the darks in the trees. So I can see that there are areas here. The light is coming from this direction. So the darkest areas are going to be on this side. Going to be to the left. And then we have a brighter area, and then we have another dark shade here. There's a little bit of a speck here, right there. And I see dark here. All of that down in there, and then here. Okay, that indicates kind of an interesting abstract shape. And then I'm going to darken a couple of the corner areas just because that helps to keep your eye in the center of the painting. Just really cleaning off my brush. All right, that's going to be our design for our painting. All right, so the next part of the painting is called blocking in. And what that means, we are going to fill in the basic color of each shape. So we're going to begin with that. I like working from the top, working down, or if you think of it, working from the background, working forward. Our first thing that we're going to begin with is the sky. And in this indication, it's just kind of a pale gray. So there's a lot going on in the field, so we're going to keep the sky very simple today. I'm going to take some of that purple that we've been using and add a little blue, and then add white to that. I think we need a little more white. I'm going to add just a little tiny bit of yellow to kind of warm it up a bit. Take it more in the direction of a gray. There we are. That will serve nicely for, I think, our local color. We'll see what it looks like on this purple background. So let's begin, just kind of, all right. Again, just filling in the local color. All right, that's a beginning. Now I want to indicate these trees that are very far away. I'm going to add just the tiniest bit of purple to our sky color. A little blue even. Kind of a periwinkle that we have there. I'm just going to indicate that back in the background. There might be another area or two where it kind of shows through. Okay. All right. One thing that I did not indicate are all these sky holes. So you can see that that tree is very lacy and very broken up. Just going to kind of break up some of that hard line that I see there. Okay, a little softer, a little bit more, less harsh. All right, so now we're going to go in and we're going to lay in the greens. So let's begin. I'm going to begin with the trees. To get green, we've got blue as a primary and yellow as a primary, and that's going to give us a range of greens depending on how much blue or how much yellow we add. You can also pull some red in there and take it into more of an olive, more of a brown direction, which we may do. So let's begin by making a little blue and yellow and get a basic green. Again, right now we're just blocking in the basic color of these items. This is a very cool green, and you can notice that these areas in shadow are very cool. So it's in this area that I'm just gonna bring some of that. Some cool green back in this area. A little bit of cool green in here as well. All right, now let's warm it up by adding more yellow. And a touch of red. As you can see, that takes it into more of an olive green. Now, you're going to take just a little bit of white, and look at that. Look at that beautiful tone. So let's indicate the areas that are hit by light. Sometimes you can see the tones better if you squint a little bit. See, there are some greens right down in through here and up here. That's kind of what I'm indicating there on those. All right, let's come in here. Back in this area, you can see there are some of those really light yellow greens. Just gonna, again, work those in. And I can see much more red in that area. So I'm gonna hit a little more red in this direction. That goes very much into a tan and a brown, which is not a bad thing. We're going to be using, I'm sure, some of that. There we are. So let's go put in some different tones of green back here. I'm using the side of my brush here just to indicate some of those lines. Still want more red. Maybe even some of that purple. I'm seeing hits of purple all through there, so I'm just going to kind of indicate some of that. Let's go in with some of that green and red mixed together. Again, just blocking in the greens right now. We'll come in later with some brighter tones. Just notice I did not do this tree. Alright, so we've pretty much just blocked in all of our basic colors. Now as we work on details, the value, it's pretty dark in this painting, so the values that we're going to be using are going to be a lighter values, and we're going to brighten it up a bit. So I'm coming back in, I've got a smaller brush now, as you can see, and I'm going to go into that sky, pull into that some of that blue that we had earlier. Still need a little blue, still need a little red, and I'm going to pull a little yellow into that as well. That's very yellow. That's a little more than I want, so let's go back, add some of that red, and then add more blue. Okay, I like that. Now let's just add white to it. Go into that sky. It's going to be lighter at the horizon, so as we're right here next to the horizon line, let's work some of that sky color in. Adding a little more blue up here at the top. Let's do a little bit of a mix and kind of work them in together. That cloud almost has a green cast to it, which I don't hate. I like it just fine. But I think near the horizon, I want to go with a little more of a pink, a little more of a lavender. So I'm going to add I'm going to pull some of that red into it. And now add white. There we go. That's about what I want. See what that looks like. See what kind of pop we get right here. There we are. Yeah, I like that. Also, that lighter pink tone against this green tree is really helping that to pop a little bit more as well. Okay, I'm going to pull just a little bit over here, just unity across our painting. Just kind of work that up into that sky. There we go. I like that much better. That's more of what I have in mind for it. All right, so let's get back into the trees. I'm adding more yellow and white to these tones. I like this sage tone. All right, let's go back in here. Some of that sage up into the tree. It's too light. I'm losing those dark values and I don't like that. Let's go back in and put those back in. Mixing up that darker green, blue and yellow. Think of your tree as more of shapes. Added more yellow here just because it did have a lot more pop. You can see the yellow is much more defined. There's some yellow here and back in here. Okay, there's yellow here, and I just added a lot of yellow to that green that we already had in place. There's some here, a little bit. I'm just going to put in a little just because, again, let's have a little unity in the painting. What you see here, you may see in other areas. So. Okay. Some of those brighter greens. Right here in the foreground. Adding more yellow. Whoop, too much. You can see though that my painting that I printed there has really a lot of yellow in it. A little more than I really wanted. Yeah. added a little more red to this kind of green right here in this area. Just to keep an area that's a little toned down. Okay. All right, so now I want to get into some of the details of some of the flowers that are happening in there. Again, different. Okay, so we have a lot of yellow, we have white, and we have purple flowers in here in this field. So let's begin with the yellow. I'm going to take just a little bit of that yellow that does have some green in it, and I'm going to hit it with some white just to tone it down. I don't want it to be too harsh. It's a little bit more of a butter mustard tone. So I'm seeing a lot of it back in here. And I'm using the side of my brush just to indicate big drifts of this yellow mustard color. I'm seeing some in the foreground here. So the yellows that are in the foreground can have a little bit more detail to them. I can actually hit some specks of yellow for these flowers. The ones that are further away are not gonna have as much of that. Okay, so now let's move on. We're going to be hitting this now with some purples. Again, to get purple, we're going to mix some blue and red. And then I'm going to add some white to it. Now, if you want a more vibrant purple, you certainly could just buy a good purple and then paint it directly out of the tube. I'm working today in primary colors just because I like to show you that you can mix paint, and mixing paint is actually, you know, a really good skill to build as you're learning to paint. So let's put in some of these. Now you see this is a little too blue. I think it needs to be more in the direction of a red purple. So I'm going to add some more red. And that's a little bit more of what I'm actually seeing in the fields. So let's do that. And let's hit that with some kind of almost a burgundy purple. You see it all right in this area, kind of some drifts of it. Okay. One thing that I have not done, and I just realized it, is I've not done any tree limbs. To do a tree limb, I want to go in a really deep dark tone. I want to make it the darkest tone I can get. So to make something near a black, I'm going to add blue and red to make purple. Again, a deep purple with a lot of blue in that. And then I'm going to add just a tiny touch of yellow. And that takes it in the direction of more of a dark brown tone. Almost black. I'm going to add a little more of that blue, just to cool it down and make it a little bit cooler. You can see what we have here is almost a really dark gray, almost black. Okay, and I'm going to get my very thin liner brush. Just going to work that liner brush, work the paint into it as I twirl, get that well saturated. So I'm going to just letting the brush do the work, just kind of flick up. Indicate some tree trunks down in here in this area. You can do the same thing over here. This brush is actually pretty stiff, and it does not have a lot of good spring to it. I think I am really going to have to be getting a purchase of a new brush. You can see it doesn't have that. So also in wildflowers, you're going to see, you know, just stems of wildflowers here and there in the foreground. Put a few of those in there as well. Okay. Now I'm going to go back in and going to indicate some of the white flowers. Again, mixing them with a little gray and a little yellow, just so they're not too stark white. You can see there are lots of just specks of white right in this area. Still, that's too bright. I'm going to pull some of that purple that I had a little while ago from my tree trunks. I want it to go a little bit more gray because it's just a little too stark. There we are. This is better. What you might see with some Queen Anne's lace or something like that. I'm going to pull a little bit of it back in the back, in the far back. Okay, just going to, with that purple, just want to indicate some, I want to go back in with some dark tones. I'm going to make that really dark purple that I had just a moment ago, and some yellow. And I want to make sure we have good movement in the painting. There's a lot of chaos going on right now with this. So I think we really kind of need to do just a little bit. By putting some darker tones in, like in here. It's going to serve to bump your eye into this direction. Put a few over on here so that your eye doesn't really want to. Going to take it around here. And we're going to, again, here, indicate some of these dark values. So what that's going to do is it kind of defines that your eye is going to go in that direction. Okay, we are coming down on the home stretch, so I'm going to go back and put a little more detail in trees. And what I want to do, again, making green. Going to add some white to that. Just a little yellow. Okay. Let's go in and define some of that. Going to do the same here, just add a little bit of defining some of that space. Now I want to get a really bright little couple of spots Adding more yellow and more white. I want to just hit right back in here. And maybe back in there. Back in there a little bit. Brighten that path a little bit. Again, that area where your eye is being led into the back. Okay, I think that pretty much finishes this for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please come and join us next time and paint along.